Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me here today. We will do a gentle warming flow, and I always wrap my mind around this time of year. I think to myself, back to school, back to business. So the idea is that this routine will sort of help warm us up and move us into what in traditional Chinese medicine is not the autumn yet, but the 5th season. So mid-August to mid-September, you might notice has its own energy, right? I love this time of year. It's when my birthday is. I have my own personal bias, but I notice people always saying things to me like, I'm looking forward to getting back into my routines, or it's been cool enough to actually do things. Somebody once said to me about the heat of the summer, too hot for long-term goals. So we're moving into a different energy, a different mindset. If your work or life is somehow connected to the school system, you're already in that way of thinking, but then the change in weather has an impact on us as well. So many people who I've been speaking to recently have said, you know, I've just been inspired to organize the house this week. So we do have a different kind of energy of establishing routines and setting goals that comes naturally at this time of year. It's cooler, maybe we're thinking a little bit straighter. And when we're in that summer heat, summer season, having the element of fire, you probably could have guessed that without me telling you, we can have our fire sometimes burn too hot and be a little too short-sighted. We take on too much and then we burn out, whereas in this time of year, we have a little bit more long vision. We can make effective plans, routines, and goals, and it's governed by the earth element. And I think of that because it's harvest season, right? It's the time of year for apples and zucchinis, and we're coming into, soon enough, we'll have a lot of squash is recommended actually to eat at this time of year. It's sweet, but not too sweet, can be really nourishing and grounding. So we will do some work, because it's not too hot anymore, in stoking our internal fire. So we'll do some gentle, not too hot movements to move our digestion along, but also to stimulate appetite at the end of this flow. So for now, we'll actually start lying down, and depending on where you are and how you'd like to, maybe you're getting back into movement after a summer of languishing in the heat or lounging by the pool. I'm on the floor on a mat, you may be lying in bed, and then I'll give us the option to get up at some point, and you might be seated in a chair or even seated on the edge of your bed. I will demonstrate the movements standing, but for now, let's start supine. So lie on your back, like I said, on the floor, on a mat, or anywhere else that serves you best. Let's start with a moment of stillness here. So lying comfortably, whatever that means to you. Traditionally in yoga, we often take the feet wider than the mat and the palms turned up, tucking our shoulder blades underneath our backs, and maybe gently tucking the chin towards the chest or in any other way that's comfortable for the head. Yes, you could have a cushion under your head. And we'll take just a moment to notice how we're feeling, remembering that you can always modify any of these movements based on how you're feeling. So I merely give suggestions, and then after that, listen to your body, try to learn to speak the language of your body, and modify any movements as you need to. Scanning the body for noticing any tension, see if we can adjust to relax it, or maybe even just mentally sending the message to that part of the body, encouraging it to release. Now we'll take a few deep breaths, feeling not just expansion of our bellies, but of the rib cage and chest as well. So you may like to place a hand, our thumbs on our ribs and our pinkies on our bellies with our fingers spread out, so we can feel this big lift and expansion upwards and outwards to the side, inflating our lungs bottom to top. Let's do one more deep breath, imagining that we are energizing ourselves with the oxygen that comes in. And then we'll start to gently wait and warm. So we can walk our feet in, and we'll come into knees to chest. Yogi's choice, we can hold behind our thighs or our shins or anywhere else that's comfortable. We also have the option with knees to chest to do just one at a time if that's more comfortable, and then switching sides. Well, let's rock side to side here. It might feel like a nice massage on your low back. And we could also take the knees in a circle, one way and then the other, or take each knee in its own circle. So with many of our poses, I'll give us lots of options when we get there, and then I'll leave us some time to move through those different options. We could also circle our ankles or wiggle our toes. I know some people like this pose reaching through and holding the ankles if that's accessible. I prefer actually to hold the knees, so you might like that instead. And let's do a single leg stretch here. So we can hold on to the right leg and we'll let the left leg go, and if we can, extend it, a nice big stretch along the mat. So we can use the strength in our upper body to pull the bent leg in, and the strength in our lower body to press the straight leg down. We are stimulating digestion here, our internal fire, by pressing thigh into belly. So if you've had a baby with indigestion, often you do the same kind of movements with their legs, right? Bicycling through the legs or taking the legs side to side, pressing the legs in and then releasing. And we'll go ahead and switch sides. So we can drop one leg, bring the other leg in, use the strength in our upper body to draw in, still keeping shoulders away from our ears, lots of length in the neck. And we're pressing down through the heel of our straight leg. We can be aiming our elbows towards the floor or the bed, whatever surface you're on. Noticing that with our breath, there is some movement of the leg that's coming in. And that's actually good. That's very helpful for digestion. Deep breathing is actually a crucial part of our digestion. And let's draw both legs together. And to stretch and lengthen out the back of the legs, we'll bend and straighten. So again, we'll spend a little bit of time here and I'll give us some different options. Holding the legs wherever it's comfortable. So yes, we might want to hold the back of the legs. You might actually prefer to hold your pant legs for a bit of stability. And you may also prefer to do one leg at a time. This one might feel really great for the back, although I know some people, not so much. They want a little bit more stability. So again, we could do one leg at a time. So let's keep moving. Doesn't matter what option you're picking, we're bending and straightening our legs, we're breathing, we're noticing how we're feeling. But it will give us some options. So we can flex our feet, or we can point our feet, maybe going back and forth from one to the other. And we'll try not to get so distracted by moving our legs that we forget about what else is going on, making sure we're breathing. And we still have this lovely space around the neck, shoulders down, neck is long. Seeing if you can find your own way to do it. And we'll give it a couple more here. Let's release our legs. We've done some work drawing our legs in, so let's do some work lengthening the front of the legs here. You may like to hold on to the outer edges of your mat, or you could grab your sheet, same idea, just provides a little stability. We can tuck our shoulders underneath our backs and lifting only as high as we're able here. You may even like, rather than holding on, to use our hands underneath our glutes to provide some help in the lift. Taking a couple breaths here, lengthening the front of the hips and strengthening the back. We're ready to release, and let's walk the legs out long. This is one of my favorite, very subtle stretches. So it's called a banana stretch. Pretty much, we're gonna make our bodies into the shape of a banana. So we'll take our right foot towards the right side of the mat, or if you're not on a mat, just walk the right foot over, and we'll walk the left foot over with it, and we can actually take the right ankle on top of the left to hold it there. Otherwise, sometimes it wants to flop away. So we'll take both feet over, right on top of left, and we can take both arms up. Depending on your range of motion, you might want a really big bend in the arm. Any issue with frozen shoulder, you might like to have your fingers by your ears or something like that. But if we're ready for a big range of motion, we can straighten the arms overhead and have the right hand hold the left wrist. So same idea as we're doing with our feet, right holds left, with our hands, right holds left, and we can walk ourselves over until we're feeling some length in the left side of the rib cage. And then you may feel naturally inclined to turn the head in one direction or the other. So the head might like to turn right, flowing with the movement of the arms and the legs. And there's really nothing to do once we get here. We hold this pose. And then the longer we hold, the more the tension in the left side of the body probably starts to give in. You might be able to get more out of this by, on purpose, taking quite a deep breath to stretch out the left side of the ribs. Let's take another breath here. Notice if we see any changes, anything loosening up. And then we can start to bring ourselves back through center, walking the feet in. And I always find it interesting to stop in the middle and notice if you're feeling any difference from one side to the other. And it doesn't matter if you noticed or not, just something to be aware of. We'll take it to the other side. So we're going to walk over left, right, and then take left on top of right. Our left hand can hold our right wrist, just like our left foot is holding our right. So we're lengthening down the right side of the body. And if the rights and the lefts get a little confusing, let's just make our bodies the shape of a banana. And let's see if we can embrace stillness here. Noticing that despite the fact that our bodies aren't moving, there is still a hum of energy and movement under the surface. Maybe we're feeling digestion, or even simply the fact that we're breathing. Scanning the body head to toe. If you're holding any unnecessary tension anywhere, we can encourage it to relax and release. And as we come back through center, let's again take a moment to notice. We can reset our bodies in our final relaxation pose or Shavasana. seeing if we could feel a difference right side to left side, or if it feels more symmetrical now. Keep working with digestion. Let's come into a twist here. So I'll show us a more gentle way to move into our twist. If you know a more typical way to do a supine twist, often we draw one leg in and then bring it across, but for today, it's often much nicer, a more subtle sensation as we often call it, to bend both legs together. And I'll show us the small range of motion and then the larger range of motion. So the small range of motion is if we take our arms out like a cactus, elbows bent at 90, or goalpost arms, and we simply just let the knees knock to one side. So we can let the knees knock to the right side, and here we are in a gentle twist. If we want a deeper range of motion, we take our hips to the left, so we pick them up and move them, and then we let our knees fall all the way over to the right, so the knees are now stacked. And then we might like our arms out to T. We might like to have our close hand, so in this case our right hand, guiding our knees towards the floor. And our left hand is free anywhere in this range of motion to reach out and then rest. And we pretty much just let gravity do all the work here. And because we're twisting, again, we're having an impact on our internal organs. The same way we wring out a washcloth, as we often say, we're wringing out, we're putting that same kind of pressure on our digestion. And then as we untwist, we release and things move through. I often think of it less like wringing out a washcloth and more like using a plunger, that we apply pressure and then release, and somewhere in there things get moving. Let's take another breath here. We might go a bit deeper with our next exhale. And we're ready to come back through center. Well, let's set up on the other side. So we want to recenter ourselves. You might feel really stretched down one side. I'll show us the easy way. Bringing our elbows into a bend, letting the knees knock to the opposite side. If we want a deeper range of motion, so more sensation, less subtle, both are good. There's nothing wrong with just letting the knees knock. We get a different stretch through the front of the hip. But if we want a deeper sensation in our twist, we move the hips to the right, maybe 6 inches or so, and then we let the knees drop to the left. And no matter which twist we choose, we can always readjust our arms. You might let your hands down. We might want to feel our movement of breath. Might want to use our close hand, so the hand that's closest to our knees in this case is our left hand, to draw our knees towards the floor. And our opposite arm can be anywhere that's comfortable, taking a moment to settle in. And let's see how much work we can give over, let gravity pick up the slack, and then we can work less. With our exhale, we might feel that we twist deeper or consciously move deeper into the twist. That's great. Well, let's take one more breath in and out. We're coming back through center. And take a moment for yourself to reset. So you may feel that a great way to reset would be turning the head side to side or knees to chest, maybe a long stretch. And then we've got one more here. We're going to wake and warm our hips. So we'll do what's called a figure 4 stretch, or you may know it as thread the needle. We'll take our right ankle over top of our left thigh, and the recommendation is usually to flex the foot. Because what happens is if we just yank on the foot, it's not ideal for our ankle, not ideal for the nerves in the top of the foot. But I would suggest actually, let's not yank the foot anyways. So yes, we can flex, and then that helps the muscles kick in that support our ankle and our knee. Rather than grabbing on our foot, let's see if we can reach behind the left leg, or we can hold our heel or our shin. We'll stay here, but again, I'll give us some options. So we could be flowing side to side. We could be drawing a circle with our legs. We could hold still the close leg, so we can hold the right leg and release the left and keep moving. So you may respond better to stillness today, or you may respond better to movement today, but both are an option. We'll release this and we can move to the next side. I always feel this side's a little bit tight. I like to shake it out before I move on. And then we're ready to take left over right. We could stay here for that more subtle sensation. Much more passive, relaxing. Let's flex the foot, holding stability in our ankle, lower leg and knee. If we'd like to draw in and increase the sensation of the workload, that's okay. So we are getting some strength work in our upper body, right? We're drawing in. And we could be circling or swaying. We could also release the right leg, knowing that both stillness and movement are perfectly good options. Making sure we're breathing. Well, let's notice how we're feeling. And how we feel may change from moment to moment, right? So we're listening to our bodies, and without any need for any kind of external ideas of how we should be doing things, let's notice how we're feeling, respond to our bodies, modify, and sometimes that means not doing the pose, right? Sometimes we stick with it and it feels like, ooh, I really don't think this is what I should be doing today. You always have that power over your own body to pause, release the pose, and even just enjoy stillness and breath for a moment until we move on to something else. When it feels like this side just about matches the other side, we can release. Again, you might like to shake out or release our legs in some way. Some kind of free movement to let that go. And since we were drawing our legs in, I'll give us the option once more to come into our bridge pose again. So we have both feet planted, our knees are pointed up. We can hold what's around us, or we might want to use our hands to help lift our glutes. But whichever we choose, we're creating length from knee to shoulder through the front of the body. And honestly, this is what we need so often. We spend so much time rounded forward sleeping or in front of a computer, driving, eating. Anything we can do to open up the front of the body is a fantastic way to balance us out. Let's take one more breath here. And we'll release. Again, you might like a moment to reset. And let's come up to a seated position. So if you are lying on a bed or on a mat, we'll roll to one side and then we'll press up. And take a moment for yourself if you need to get a chair or rearrange yourself in any other way. And then we'll meet in standing. Standing or seated, let's reset our posture here. We can squeeze our shoulders up, draw them down and back, stretching crown of the head to the sky. Well, let's take a breath to reset. We'll inhale up and exhale down, bringing hands to heart center. And let's do this again, but we'll reach overhead. We'll do some work on our upward range of motion. So, depending on what's been going on in your shoulders, your upward range of motion might be very low. Doesn't matter what it is, it's all good. We're working towards an extended upward mountain pose. So for you, that might look like all sorts of things. A lot of people do not have the best upward range of motion. Sometimes that includes me. So let's see how well we do, extending fingertips up and drawing shoulder blades down. We may notice that with the arms overhead, if we take a deep breath in, we feel some tension or some stretching, pulling in and around our rib cage and our underarms. Let's try it. Take a deep breath in. And you may notice a change in sensation. Let's do that one more time. And we'll release our arms. Okay, let's go through movements of the spine. This is supposed to energize us. So our various movements of the spine include side bending, forward bending, back bending, and rotation. And we'll go through them in that order. Here we go. For our side bending, let's take our thumbs to our shoulders to begin. Tall, strong posture. And we're focusing on the movement of our spine. So we have this nice open chest, and we're bending one way, coming back through center, and bending the other way. So the reason why I've brought our thumbs to our shoulders is because often when we do lateral flexion, we get a little carried away with movements of the arms, and we forget that this is about movements of the spine. Now, if we would like, we can add movements of the spine. Punching and reaching overhead, big stretch, and then coming back through center. We can add our breath as well, inhaling up and exhaling down. That again will help with that stretch open. All right, we'll go once more each way. We'll come back through neutral. And let's finally release those hands. Might feel good to give them a shake off. We'll come into our forward and backward movement. I'll show you from the side. You can stand however it makes the most sense for you. But we're going to round our spines one way, and then round our spines the other way. So we are dropping our hearts. We might want to slide our hands down our thighs as we do so. And then we're lifting our hearts. We can bring our hands back up and pull our elbows back. Rounding and tucking the chin. Lifting our hearts, untucking our tails. And we might like to add on stretching our hands forward. And then either pulling elbows or hands back. So we got lots of stuff moving here, right? We have our pelvis is moving and tucking under. And then our pelvis is untucking, lengthening the back of the thighs, kind of sticking our butts out. Our belly is contracting and our low back is rounding. And then we have the opposite. Our belly is lengthening and our low back is contracting. And the same thing in our rib cage, right? So we're stretching the front of the rib cage as we lift our hearts and contract our shoulder blades back together. And then we're stretching the back of the rib cage as we reach forward, stretching our upper back as well. And even our head and neck are getting involved, right? So we're looking up, lengthening across the chest and the collarbones, the front of the neck. And then as we tuck our chin, we're stretching the back of the neck. Well, let's do one more here. We're gonna hold in chest expansion. So we'll reach our hands back, lifting our chests. And if we want, we can interlace and punch our hands down. Again, we may notice if we take a deep breath, we get a very different sensation in and around our rib cage. We're coming back through center. And let's come into our spinal rotation. We'll start with our hands at our ribs. You might prefer hands at thumbs at shoulders like we just did. But again, we often get distracted by the arms moving and we're not actually moving our spines. So let's start with our spines. Hands on the rib cage, and we're gonna turn and twist our heart to the side one way, pointing our heart back through center, and then turn and twist heart or the center of the chest, whichever makes the most sense for you. Let's go side to side. It's generally recommended to inhale when we're neutral, and then exhale in the twist. Can we stoke that inner fire? Let's draw the belly in with our exhale. So inhale, ribs expand. Exhale, we really pull the abs in to help move us into that movement. I'm gonna give us some options for more heat, more fire. So we can inhale, arms overhead, and then exhale, moving the arms. Careful that we are actually twisting from the ribs, not just the arms. And we're either sweeping the hands back, or sometimes it's nice to wrap around the body, give ourselves a hug. And if we want to add on, we can add a little chair squat here. So sitting our butts back into a chair, we're getting a rotation and warmth in the lower body. Noticing how this makes us feel. Are you feeling invigorated? Does it feel like too much of a challenge? Knowing that we can turn the heat down if that's best. Noticing where we are today. And then just for today, choosing whichever option works best, knowing that tomorrow we might be living in a slightly different body, right? And then we'll need a slightly different option. Okay, we've been twisting a lot. I hope we are feeling warm. I hope shoulders are feeling okay. Let's go once more each way. Okay, and let's hold in this upward mountain pose. This is where we started, and let's check in again. How are the shoulders feeling? How does it feel to take a deep breath? Seeing if we can name some sensations in and around the torso. And let's release the arms, coming back into a tall mountain pose, knowing that no matter what we observed in sensation in the upper body, it is all part of the process. Okay, we're almost there. Can we take our feet wide? So if you're seated on a chair, simply taking our feet wide, and if we're standing, stepping our feet wide. This is sun pose. So we generally avoid sun pose in the summer because it's, as the name suggests, heat building. But now that we're in the season of the earth element, let's bring some heat back in. Let's start by noticing the earth or surface beneath us, feeling grounded, strong, heavy, weighted, all those lovely qualities of the earth. And let's take our arms out so that our hands are just about over top of our feet, or if we were to point our fingers down, our fingers are over top of our feet, our wrists are over top of our feet. If we're in a lot narrower, just make sure we're not dropping too low. We want to get some work going on in our inner thighs, but once the knees start to come out past our toes like a ballerina, not so good for the knee joints. So we step wide, we take our hands wide, really strong, powerful pose. Remember that rounding forward and back bending that we did? Let's be maybe a little bit more in a back bend in the pelvis. So we have a natural curve through the low back. We can take our hands to our low back and feel that out. Are you feeling really flat in the low back? And as your pelvis pressed forward, then let's take it back a bit. We should have a crease in the front of the hips. We should be able to feel that bend in the low back. We'll flip our palms upward to be more open across our chest and shoulders. And let's hold our strength. We might feel a stretch through the inner thighs. So we could consider this the real workout part of our flow today, because we're probably maybe feeling fatigue in our muscles, we're feeling heat building, our muscles are really working, but it won't be forever. Let's, if we want, we can inhale up and exhale down a few times here. So if we're seated, of course, we would be just moving the arms. Let's pause at the bottom. And then if it feels good, we could lower our hands to our thighs and come into a deeper range of motion. Whether we're standing or seated in a chair or at the edge of the bed, we can still take our hands down, and it might feel great to drop one shoulder at a time or hinge forward. And the beauty of doing this in a chair is actually that you can usually get a little bit lower. And let's make our way up to standing. So we'll straighten out. We'll walk our feet together. Of course, if you are seated, we can stay seated. And we're gonna finish with some balance movement. So depending on your balance and how you're doing, you might wanna hold on to something. If you're seated in a chair, you'll do the same. We're gonna lift one leg. So if you're seated, we'll do the same movement, lifting one leg. But please do take a moment to reorient yourself. If you need to put your hand on the wall to get your balance, feel free to do so. And I'll do that with you. I have one wall here. So let's get our good foot up and balanced. We'll bring our knee up, finding our balance here. Balance poses are supposed to be, again, grounding. They're great for focus, and they're balancing for all three doshas, if you're familiar with your dosha, especially if we remember to breathe. So we'll start in stillness. And then once we feel settled, we'll add a little movement, a little pulse in our free leg. Can we keep our posture even though our leg is lifting? Okay, let's give it another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we can give our standing leg a shake. And if you were holding something, my recommendation would always be to switch hands. So if you're holding something on one side, let's hold with the other hand, or you can turn around. I won't be doing anything different. It'll look the same this time through. Okay, let's find our opposite standing leg. We can come into stillness to begin. Settling in, making sure that when we brought that leg forward, we weren't slouching, that we can still keep our posture while lifting the leg. And whether we are seated or standing, let's go ahead and pulse. Okay, let's give another 5. Beautiful. We'll release. Ooh. Might feel good to shake the legs out. And we'll come into a mountain pose, or you might like to sit. I will give us the option for a breathing technique that I call either walking up the mountain or walking down the mountain. So here's how it goes. I will show us both, and we can try each of them, and you'll probably gravitate towards one more than the other. So we're going to take little breaths in or little breaths out. So let's do walking down the mountain first. A big breath in, and then like we are walking down, little breaths out until our lungs are empty. So it simply looks like this. That's it. So I'll show us with some hand signals. Let's try it one more time. So big breath in, and then we exhale. Until the lungs are empty, and then we repeat. So that's walking down the mountain. Walking up the mountain is the opposite. Little breaths in, and then a long breath out. Again, it looks like this. I'll do it once more with hand signals. You don't need to do the hand signals. It's just because I can't talk and demonstrate the breath at the same time. Try it out. Again, like I said, you'll gravitate to one more than the other. I like the walking up the mountain today. You might like the walking down the mountain. Let's go ahead, and I'll give us enough time to try both of them. In case you would prefer to just follow me and do whatever I'm doing, I will walk down the mountain twice, and then I will walk up the mountain twice. I will do the hand signals if that makes it easier for you. Here we go. Let's walk down the mountain a couple times. you want to join me, we'll walk up the mountain a couple times. And no matter what style of breathing you've been doing, let's circle sweep our arms a couple of times to reset. And let's pause with hands at heart center. You can relax shoulders back and down. Tall spine once more. Taking a moment again to notice how we're feeling, seeing if we can name how many sensations we feel in the body. Do we feel warmth? Do we feel cold? Do we feel a tingling? Do we feel light, heavy, maybe specific sensations in the shoulders, hips, knees, whatever it may be? Let's take a moment here, going head to toe, naming whatever sensations you feel. And then let's bring into our minds, thinking back over the summer, if you have one happy summer memory to bring to mind. Looking forward into the autumn and the 5th season, do you have a goal that you would like to start working on? Bringing that to mind now. Looking back to the summer, can you bring to mind an act of kindness that you experienced or that you saw? Or maybe that you took part in? And then casting our minds forward into the future, picking out something you're looking forward to, anything big or small. Let's open the eyes. One more time, we will circle sweep our arms, bringing hands to heart. Thank you so much for joining me. From my light to yours, namaste. Take care and enjoy the 5th season.